Hello and welcome everybody to a new video from Jörg, Joggler66, Hour of the Truth. Today on the 14th of March 2018, already at 10 o'clock in the evening, I still have come to the table because I feel the urge to finish the book reading, The Secret History of the Jesuits from Edmund Paris. Last time we were getting over the last but one chapter of Antichrist Pope John the 23rd and about him pulling off the mask of the Vatican, and we started reading the conclusion of the book. After all this time that we have now finally come to finish this book, I think this will be the last reading, or yeah, I told you already in the last reading that if I'm gonna continue this reading, if I'm gonna finish this reading, I'm gonna go with a bang. And that bang is maybe taking a little bit more time than we can put into this video today, because you know that I like to keep it about an hour long in my videos. So without any further ado, we come to the book. Let's just see that the recording is running well. Yeah. And we are coming to the book, The Secret History of the Jesuits, on page 192 of 197 of the PDF. And I'm going to start exactly at that sentence that I left off last time, that is here in green, highlighted as you can see. The Council of Trent seems already to be the testament of Catholicism. And I told you about the book of the Catechism of the Council of Trent, that you should get that you should read that, so that you understand that all these videos that I do about exposing the Jesuit order and about exposing the Roman Catholic Church, I do not out of bigotry for that church, but I do because it is the truth. And when you read that book on the Catechism of the Council of Trent, that I showed you last time in a picture, I can show you again now. The Catechism, let's just see if he gets the book here. Well, okay, that's Catechism Romanus. Okay, it's not. The computer sometimes doesn't want to give me the words that I need, but here you can see that book. Yeah, it's searching. Here. The Catechism of the Council of Trent. So when you read this book, this is from the Roman Catholic Church itself. Read it and see what they write in there, and if that has anything to do with biblical truth, with biblical teaching, with biblical doctrine, with the Creator God of the Bible, and with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you come to the conclusion that it has, I don't know what you were reading in comparison to this. Put the Bible next to the Catechism of the Council of Trent and you see the enemy. You know, there are so many people, like today on this Luther video that I uploaded here, part 18. If the Pope did not exist, the Turk would not have received such power, or such great power. I'm gonna open this up because I want to show to you a comment that somebody placed in there. Don't let me judge Martin Luther, because you know this book, If the Pope did not exist, the Turk would not have received such great power, is the 18th last but one reading of the book from Martin Luther against the Roman Papacy and Institution of the Devil, which I just uploaded today. And this guy says, don't let me judge Martin Luther, but from an Islamic view and clear definition of the Dajjal, which is the Antichrist, the Pope is in no way the Antichrist, since the Dajjal is a young man with black curled hair appearing as a Jew without being actually a Jew. Check Sheikh Imran Hussein and Alexander Dugan. Okay? People are so betrayed that they believe everybody is the Antichrist but the Roman Catholic papacy. And that's my point that I want to make. If you don't understand that the papacy is the Antichrist, and the Jesuits are his minions to achieve his goal, that they all are working for Satan. When you don't understand that, with all the videos that I make, with all the books that are out there to read, whether as a PDF or as real books that you can hold in your hand, like Romanism and the Reformation, like Martin Luther's book on the papacy, against the papacy, an institution of the devil, James Edgar Wiley, the papacy is the Antichrist, Cold War Babylon even, Dave Hunt, A Woman Rides the Beast, even though Dave Hunt didn't understand the Roman papacy to be the Antichrist, he was betrayed by the futurist lie. If all these things don't help you in understanding that, that is just a proof that you are someone who has eyes but doesn't see, who has ears and doesn't hear. There are a lot of those people, and I'm not to judge them. I'm not to judge you. I'm just telling you that the proof is out there. It is easy to be found. And we read in this little sentence in the Secret History of the Jesuits, the Council of Trent seems already to be the testament of Catholicism. This is taken out of a quote. And that quote goes even further, and we read on the bottom of the page that this is taken from Henri Petit, L'honneur de Dieu, which means the honor of God, published by Grasset in Paris 1958 on page 88. So this is out there. This is not even Edmond Paris speaking. This is not even the publisher of this book, Jack Chick, speaking. No, this is from the book that we just read here. And this is absolutely the truth. The Council of Trent seems already to be the testament of Catholicism. And why can I say that with such surety? Well, still, before I go into the book reading, I have to tell you this. A few months ago, I came across a video from a Bishop Schneider, is his name. And that was about the quote-unquote controversy of Pope Francis, who allegedly said on a plane flight that he agrees with Martin Luther's teaching of salvation through grace. And this Bishop Schneider, when he was asked, do you know what his response was? He said, and I cannot quote that verbatim because that's out of my memory, but he said, we already have a more sure affirmation about the teaching of the Roman Catholic Church about salvation. And that is from the Council of Trent. That is in this book, the Catechism of the Council of Trent. That is from the Council of Trent, because the bishop said at that moment, the Pope can on a plane say whatever he wants. He didn't speak ex cathedra. We have an ex cathedra teaching, doctrine, understanding of salvation, and that is from the Council of Trent. And here we read in this quote, the Council of Trent seems already to be the testament of Catholicism. Don't you see how it all fits together? Whether you like it or not, the Catholics are not the nice people you think they are. Now let's see what this quote continues with. The Council of Trent seems already to be the testament of Catholicism. It is the last genuine council. So that means that all councils after that, Vatican Council in 1870, which declared the Pope infallible, Vatican II of the 1960s, which launched the ecumenical movement and was taking care of catching all the harlot daughters back under the wings of Rome, are not genuine councils. Because it continues to say, after that, there will only be the Vatican Council which consecrates the abdication of the councils. We are well aware of the Pope's gain at the end of the councils. What a simplification and what an impoverishment also. Roman Christianity takes possession of its character of absolute monarchy, founded now and forever on papal infallibility. The picture is beautiful, but life bears its cost. Everything comes from Rome, and Rome is left to lean only on Rome, only on itself. And what is the difference with us Bible-believing Christians? We lean only on the rock, that is Jesus Christ. And by the way, this is end of quote 4, and so you can see that the quote started here and ended here, so I told you rightfully where that is to be found. Okay? Everything comes from Rome, and Rome is left to lean only on Rome. Well, and Bible-believing Christians say every truth comes from our God and our Lord Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is the only rock we have to lean on and to stand on. Further on, the same author sums up what the famous company must be credited for. Quote, "It delayed maybe the death of the church, but by a kind of pact with death." Unquote. A kind of sclerosis, or if not necrosis, is spreading and corrupting the church under that Loyolan ascendancy. Vigilant guardians of the dogma whose antiquated character they accentuate with their aberrant worship of the Virgin Mary, the Jesuits, master of the Gregorian Pontifical University which was founded by Ignatius of Loyola, check the teaching of the seminaries, supervise the missions, reign at the Holy Office, animate the Catholic action, censure and direct the religious press in every country, remember Miranda Prosus and Inter Mirifica, patronize with tender love the greater centers of pilgrimages, Lourdes, Lisieux, Fatima, and so on. In short, they are everywhere, and we can regard as significant the fact that the Pope, when ministering at the Mass, is necessarily assisted by a Jesuit. His confessor is always a Jesuit too, as we know, for example, from Pope Pius XII, that his confessor was Cardinal Bia. That same Cardinal Bia that led Alberto Ribera into the Vatican archives. Yeah? Bia. I have pictures of him, of course, in this on this computer, in this thing, and here you have him. Cardinal Augustin Bia, President of the Secretariat for Promoting Christian Unity. So, that is about the ecumenical movement. And there you got him. Yeah? And he was the confessor, he is a Jesuit, and he was the confessor of Antichrist Pope Pius XII. Okay? By working at perfecting the concentration of power in the hands of the sovereign pontiff, the company of Jesus is in fact working for itself, and the Pope, apparent beneficiary of that work, could echo these famous words, "I am their chief, so I will follow them." You have to understand this. I am their chief, so I follow them. How and why do you have to understand that? Well, let me put you, let's just see, from a book that we will come to later on. There you will read something very interesting, and this is in English. This is taken from the book I'm going to show you later. It's this book, The Jesuits, A Complete History of Their Open and Secret Proceedings from the Foundation of the Order to the Present Time. There we read on page 81, "The General of the Order of the Society of Jesus, as soon as he is nominated, shall have complete power as to the government of the Society, and especially also over the whole members of the same, wheresoever the latter may reside, and with whatsoever office or dignity they may be endowed. His power shall indeed be so unlimited," and we are speaking about the General of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, his power shall indeed be so unlimited that should he deem it necessary for the honor of God, ad majorem Dei gloriam, which is the motto of the Jesuits, he shall even be able to send back, or in other directions, those who have come direct from the Pope. So, who has the power? In the secret history of the Jesuits we read here that we could echo the famous words of the Pope, I am their chief, so I will follow them. What does this here say? Here the Pope in the bull Injunctum Nobis puts the power of the Jesuit general above his own power. So who is ruling? The Pope, the white Pope as you know him, or the black Pope of whom you have most of the people no understanding? And this you can read in the papal bull Injunctum Nobis that was published in 1543. You can get that there. It's all out there. It's all documented. This is no conspiracy theory. This is not Jörg ranting about bigoting the Roman Catholic Church or the Jesuit order or whatever. This is absolute proof, even in their own writings, because a bull is the highest official paper a pope can publish. Yeah? And we are going into that book a little bit later, I tell you. But this is some interesting fact, don't you think? Now let's go back here that we can do another search when we need it. So we have here Cardinal Bia, and now we understand why the sovereign pontiff, quote-unquote sovereign pontiff, says, I am their chief, so I follow them. Because actually the chief is the general of the Society of Jesus, and not the quote-unquote sovereign pontiff, Pontifex Maximus. So it becomes more and more hopeless trying to distinguish the action of the Holy See from the one of the company. They are so intertwined that their actions cannot be separated, whether this is from the Society of Jesus or this is from the Roman Catholic Church. And that's just the point that is being made here. Yeah? Their actions are so similar they cannot be addressed whether to the one or to the other. They cannot be distinguished anymore. But this order, the very backbone of the Church, tends to dominate her entirely. For a long time now the bishops have been nothing more than civil servants, docile executors of the orders coming from Rome, or rather from the Jesuits. Without any doubt, Loyola's disciples endeavor to mask from the eyes of the faithful the harshness of a more and more totalitarian system. The Catholic press, under their direct control, and not only the Catholic press, but all press under control of the Vatican, remember Miranda Prosus and Inter Mirifica. I showed you these and we were discussing these during Rulers of Evil and many other of my videos, that when anybody ever thinks that the media is controlled by the Jews, it always shows that in Inter Mirifica and Miranda Prosus, the Roman Catholic Church states it is her inherent right to control all media, control and own all media. So it's not only the Catholic press, as the author says here, it is all of the press. The press, I'd say then, under their direct control assumes some variety of inspiration to give its readers the illusion of a kind of independence, to be open to quote-unquote new ideas. The fathers, who are all things to all men, you know, chameleons, what the Jesuits are, willingly practice these jugglers' tricks which deceive only the stargazers. But behind these pretty amusements, the everlasting Jesuit is watching, about whom an aforementioned author wrote, intransigence is inborn in him. Capable of being a shuffler because of his craftiness, he only excels at being stubborn. We find excellent examples of that stubbornness and insidious bias in the patient work of the company's members to conciliate, for better or worse, the modern and scientific spirit to which they take care to be attentive with the demands of the doctrine in general, and especially with these rather idolatrous forms of devotion, the worship of Mary and wonder-working, of which they remain the most zealous propagators. To say that these efforts are crowned with success would be an exaggeration. When blending water and fire, we obtain mainly steam. But even the inconsistency of these clouds is rather pleasing to certain subtle minds, even though warned about the dangers too much precision in the thoughts brings to a sincere piety. Vade retro, Satanas, means get behind me, Satan. As far as that is concerned, German metaphysics are most helpful. We find in them everything we need, and even the opposite. There isn't any childish superstition which, after pedantic treatment, does not acquire some appearance of seriousness and even depth. It is rather amusing to follow the game in the periodicals and bulletins of various cultural groups. There, the inquirer finds the material he needs, and especially the one who, through an inclination somewhat aberrant, enjoys reading between the lines. And this is something that you really should get under your knee, and that you should really be firm in when you read these books, that you can read between the lines, because the information that you get then, and by combining the knowledge of this book and that book together, is just incredible. However, the author continues, these men, full of bitterness, do not live only the speculative sphere. The good fathers made sure they gave their apostolate amongst intellectuals a solid temporal foundation. To the gifts of the Spirit they lavishly bestow upon their disciples are added substantial advantages. Besides, it is an ancient tradition. In Charlemagne's time, the converted Saxons received a white shirt. Nowadays, the beneficiaries of a newly found or rediscovered faith enjoy other favors, especially in the academic and scientific worlds. The not very clever student passes examinations without difficulties. The professor is given the professional chair of his choice. The physician, who is a quote-unquote believer in addition to rich clients, has preference when wanting to join some important society, etc., etc. Through a natural mechanism, these choice recruits will bring others, and as there is strength in number, their conjugated action will be most efficacious in what we call the leading spheres. This can be seen in Spain, so we are told, and even elsewhere. In the newspaper Le Monde on the 7th of May 1956, Henri Fesquet devoted an important article to the Spanish Opus Dei. When defining the action of pious and occult organization he wrote, quote, "Its members aim at helping intellectuals to reach a religious state of perfection through the exercise of their professions and sanctify professional work." Unquote. This, however, is no new story, and Fesquet knows it, for he says a little further on, quote, "They are accused, and the fact doesn't seem deniable, of wanting to occupy the key spots of the land, to be at the core of the university, to be at the core of administration, governments, to prevent from entering or even expel from them unbelievers and liberals." Unquote. The opus, which is Latin for work. The opus apparently entered France clandestinely in November 1954, brought in by 2 priests and 5 laymen, doctors of medical students. That may be so, but we doubt if this reinforcement coming from Tras los Montes was really necessary to the pursuit of their work, which has been going on for a long time now in France, mainly in the medical and academic worlds, as certain scandals and examinations and competitions revealed it. In any case, the French branch of this action, supposed to be God's work, Opus Dei, doesn't seem to be clandestine after all, judging by what François Mauriac wrote about it. Quote, I was the recipient of a strange confidence, so strange in fact that, if it had not been signed by a Catholic writer who is one of my friends and whom I trust, I would think it was a practical joke. He had offered an article to a periodical which accepted the offer gladly but never acknowledged its receipt. Months go by. My friend becomes anxious, makes inquiries, and eventually receives this answer from the director on that periodical. Quote, as you probably know, the quote-unquote Opus Dei has been checking what we publish for the past few months. And this Opus Dei absolutely refused to allow that text to be printed. Unquote. This friend asks me the question, what is the Opus Dei? And I too, openly and candidly ask it. Okay, what is Opus Dei? Well, we already know because we have studied Opus Dei quite deeply in other broadcasts than this, and here we still have a picture of Opus Dei. What is the Opus Dei? And I too openly and candidly ask it. This question, about which François Mauriac hints is not as candid as he says, the eminent academician could have asked it from people he knew well. He could have asked writers, publishers, booksellers, men of science, lecturers, theater and cinema people, unless he preferred to inform himself quite simply at the editing centers. As for the opposition, the Opus Dei is supposed to meet from certain Jesuits. We see in it nothing more than group rivalry. The company, as we have said and proved, is modernist, as easily as integrist, according to the opportunities as it is determined to have a foot in both camps. In fact, the same publication, Le Monde, printed an article by Jean Créache, ironically inviting us to admire an auto da fe of the Spanish Jesuits, fortunately limited to the works of French literature. Indeed, this Jesuit censor doesn't seem to be a modernist, judging by what Jean Créache says. Quote, if Father Garmendia had the power of Cardinal Tavera, the one whose gaze was resuscitated by Greco like lightning in a greenish mask, above the purple, Spain would be acquainted only with our literature by emasculated or even beheaded authors. Unquote. Then, after quoting several amusing examples of the Reverend Father's purifying zeal, the author tells this pertinent reflection. Quote, are the brains formed by our Jesuits so weak that they cannot confront even the smallest danger to triumph over it themselves? Whispered a mischievous tongue, tell me, dear friend, if they are incapable of it, what is the value of the teaching which renders them so feeble? Unquote. To this humorous critic we can answer that the said weakness of the brains moduled by the Jesuits is, in fact, the main value of their teaching, and its danger as well. This is the place to which we always have to return. Through a special vocation, and in spite of some honorable, even famous exceptions, They are the sworn enemies of freedom of the mind. Brainwashed brainwashers. This is their strength, as well as their weakness and injuriousness. André Mata stated extremely well the absolute totalitarianism of their order when he wrote, quote, "Through the disciple which unites him in spirit to all his fellow members, each one of them acts and thinks with the intensity of 30,000 others. This is Jesuit or Jesuitic fanaticism." Or fanaticism, yeah, I read that word correctly. This is Jesuit fanaticism. More terrible nowadays than ever before, this Jesuitic fanaticism, absolute master of the Roman Church, has embroiled her deeply in the competitions of world politics, in which the militant and military spirit distinguishing this company delights in. Under its care, the papal organization and the swastika launched a deadly attack on the hated liberalism and tried to bring out the quote-unquote new Middle Ages Hitler promised Europe. And you know, this is something that we will, of course, go through again in this world. These new Middle Ages Hitler promised Europe are going to be unleashed in the United States of America in the not too far distant future. The quote-unquote Fourth Reich. Yeah? A Reich, a empire, is always based on Rome. You had the First Reich between 800 and 1800 as the Holy Roman Empire of German nation. You had the Second Reich between 1870 and 1918 from Bismarck, which was a Protestant Reich, which was a rule outside of the Roman Catholic Church in the land of the quote-unquote Holy Roman Empire. You had the Third Reich with Adolf Hitler between 1933 and 1945. And of course you will have the Fourth Reich, the rule of the United States of America. And you know, when the United States of America rules the world, the Roman Catholic Church rules the world. You know? Let's see. How do I come to that quote? Or how do I come to even dare to say something like that? Well, very easy. Here is the quote, and I think it is very hard to read. It is even hard to read for me. But this is from the Chicago Daily Tribune, May 5th, 1903. Archbishop James E. Quigley said, "When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. Nothing can stand against the Church." This is another picture where this is taken from. This is just the article itself. Quigley as an optimist. Here you can see this is from Tuesday, May 5th, yeah, of the Chicago Daily Tribune. And here it says May 5th, 1903. So, this is the article that I got out of the internet. Okay? It is the Roman Catholic Church that rules. And if the Roman Catholic, if the United States of America rule the world, then the Roman Catholic Church rules the world. Through the Jesuits. That's what they've been working on all the time. And this is to show you, in the reading of this book, The Secret History of the Jesuits, that you get an understanding of that. That you see that we are not talking about conspiracies or whatever, but we are speaking about biblical facts. This is Jesuitic fanaticism. Yeah. And under its care, the papal organization, under the Jesuitic fanaticism, under that care, the papal organization and the swastika launched a deadly attack on the hated liberalism and tried to bring about the new Middle Ages, or even the New World Order as it is called today, going back to the old world order, restoring the power of the Pope before the Reformation, the one that Hitler promised Europe. In spite of von Ledokowski's, the general of the society during the beginning of the reign of Adolf Hitler in the 1930s, in spite of von Ledokowski's prodigious plans, in spite of Himmler, our Ignatius of Loyola, in spite of the slow death camps, in spite of corrupting of minds by Catholic action and unrestrained propaganda of the Jesuits in the United States, the providential man's enterprise was a failure, and the heritage of St. Peter, instead of increasing in the East, was reduced by that much. Just another word on my last comment that I made here in this part. Under its care, the papal organization and the swastika launched the deadly attack Hitler promised Europe. It says then a little further on, as we can read here, about the liberals. Where did I read this now? Deadly attack on the hated liberalism. All the United States of America are not Roman Catholic, but most of the part they are American Catholic. And to understand that, you have to read the book The Ark and the Dove by J. Moss Ives, and you have to read Rulers of Evil. And when you read that and you understand that, or you even better go to the archives of First Amendment Radio and listen to Tom Fress reading that, you will understand that the American Catholic Church is a Catholic Church very special and unique in the complete world. Because they got quote-unquote permission in the beginning to object the rule, the temporal rule of the Pope, but only accept the spiritual rule of the Pope. That is what made America so special and equal to France, because France always struggled against the temporal power of the Pope, always accepting the spiritual one. This is probably why the French helped the Americans in their war effort. But all of America, all the Catholics in America, I mean most of them, are not ultramontane but are liberals. And when you listened to my book reading of this book, The Secret History of the Jesuits by Edmund Paris, you know what during the quote-unquote New Middle Ages Hitler promised Hitler did with liberals in Germany and all over Europe. And if you didn't, well then go back and watch these readings. An undeniable fact remains, the author continues. The National Socialist movement, the most Catholic Germany ever had, was also and by far the most abjectly cruel, without excluding from the comparison the barbarian epochs. Painful declaration indeed for many believers, but one it would be wise meditating upon. In the orders burghs, castles, where the training was a copy of the Jesuitic method, the master, apparent at least, of the Third Reich formed his SS elite, before which, according to his wishes, the world trembled, but also vomited with disgust. The same causes produce the same results. There are disciplines too heavy for the human soul to bear, and which would utterly break a conscience. Crime of alienation of oneself masked by heroism. No commandment can be good if, first of all, it corrupts a soul. When one has engaged oneself fully in a society, other beings lose much of their importance. End quote. In fact, the Nazi chiefs had no consideration for the other beings. We can say the same as well of the Jesuits. They made obedience their idol. And this utter obedience was invoked by the accused of Nuremberg to excuse their awful crimes. Finally, Edmund Paris says, we borrow from the same author who analyzed Jesuitic fanaticism so well this final judgment. Quote, we reproach the company with its skill its politics and deceit. We ascribe to it all the calculations, all the hidden motives, all the underhand blows. We reproach her even with the intelligence of its members. Yet there isn't one country where the society has not experienced great disappointment, where it hasn't behaved in a scandalous manner and drawn upon itself righteous anger. If their Machiavellism had the depth generally attributed to it, would these grave and thoughtful men constantly throw themselves into abysses human wisdom can foresee, into catastrophes they were bound to expect as the order experienced similar ones in all civilized states? The example is simple. A powerful genius governs the society, a genius so powerful that it thrusts it sometimes even against stumbling blocks, as if it could break them ad majorem Dei gloriam, of Dei gloriam. This genius is not the one of the general, of his advice, of the provincials, nor the heads of every household. It is the living genius of this vast body. It is the inevitable strength resulting from this gathering of sacrificed consciences, bound intelligences. It is the explosive strength and domineering fury of the order resulting from its nature itself. In a great accumulation of clouds, lightning is powerful and the storm is bound to break out." Unquote. Now between 1939 and 1945, this storm killed at least 57 million souls, ravaging and ruining Europe. We must be on our guard. Another and even worse catastrophe may lie hidden in the same clouds. Lightning may strike again, throwing the world into abysses human wisdom can foresee, but out of which, if it had the misfortune to let itself be thrown into, no power could rescue it. In spite of what Rome's spokesman may say, it is not anti-clericalism which prompted us to study carefully the Vatican's politics, or those of the Jesuits, and to denounce its motives and means, but the necessity to enlighten the public about the sly activity of fanatics who do not retreat before anything. The past has proved this too often to reach their aims. We have seen now, during the 18th century, the European monarchies united to demand the suppression of this evil order. Nowadays, in the 21st century, it can concoct its intrigues in peace, and the democratic governments do not seem to appear concerned, because they are all infiltrated and controlled by the Jesuits. The danger the world is exposed to because of this company is far greater today than at the time of the Family Pact, and even greater than when the two world wars broke out. No one can nurse any illusion as to the deadly consequences another conflict would have. And this brings to a conclusion the book, The Secret History of the Jesuits, written and published by Edmond Paris, published by Jack T. Chick, among others, I think, in 1975, and giving you not a complete, absolutely not a complete, but a very deep look into the history of the Jesuits, and even parts of the Jesuits that they don't want you to know, that they don't want you to understand. The book, The Secret History of the Jesuits, goes along with a book, Cold Word Babylon, that I am currently reading with Brother Brett Norman on my channel, Joggler66, which he first publishes on his channel, Brett Norman. We have come to page 239 of the first volume of this two-volume book, 239 of 520. So we are almost in half of the book, of the first volume Altogether it's about a little bit more than 1,000 pages. We have done more than 40 recordings up to now. That will give you insight into the history of the Jesuits. And then there is another one which I find quite interesting. That's why I showed you that already a little bit earlier today. That is the book that you can get at amazingdiscoveries.org, ebooks. The Jesuits. It is called The Jesuits, A Complete History of Their Open and Secret Proceedings from the Foundation of the Order to the Present Time. Now this book has some, I don't know, 370, about 400 pages. The PDF is longer because it contains more than this book. But I'm reading for the moment the German version of this, that is written by Theodor Griesinger. Theodor Griesinger was a German who lived for a time in the 19th century in the United States and then came back and wrote several books. And among the books that he wrote was this one about the Jesuits. And I'm reading the German version for the moment on my second YouTube channel, Joggler's War on Disinfo. I can show you right here. This is the Jesuiten von Theodor Griesinger. This is the playlist. There are 2 videos uploaded up to today, and there will of course come more. I have for the moment I think 9 videos produced, but I don't throw a new video out every day, as you know. So you can follow that reading here if you can speak German or understand German. And I don't know if I ever read this English version to my listeners, but I just want to show you the preface of this book. It's quite interesting, because in the preface to the second edition we read by the author in Stuttgart, that's the city where Mercedes comes from, by the way, in July 1872, that's the second edition, the first was 1866, the new edition of my History of the Jesuits is the best proof that the book has done its work. It has found thousands of readers, and no one has put it aside without being obtained a proper idea of this society, the Society of Jesus, so worthy of condemnation. And seeing now that the imperial government has ranged itself on our side, speaking of 1872, the Second Reich, the Reich of Bismarck, who just before July 1872 banned the Jesuits from German soil. That's why the author says, seeing now that the imperial government, the government of the German Reich, has ranged itself on our side, let us hope that the accursed ban by which, through the influence of the Jesuits, the spiritual resurrection of our fatherland has been restrained, will now be removed from Germany. Firstly, the crushing of empire's enemies, and now the attack on the foes of light. When was there ever for Germany a greater epoch? Interesting question, and I can tell you that for this greater epoch, Germany during World War I and World War II later on paid dearly. This is a very interesting book to read. If I'm gonna read it in English, I don't know, because I have so many other things to do. In German, this is quite difficult to read because the book is written in Frakturschrift. So that is this old German letter type. Yeah? It's like this. Yeah? You get it? This is not so easy to read. Huh? And this is 384 pages in the first volume, and I also have the second volume, which is the same. So the German is even more difficult to read. But I told you that when we are done with the secret history of the Jesuits, I'm gonna go out of this broadcast with a bang. Now we only have about 12-13 minutes left until we come to the completion of a full hour of reading. Therefore, I want to take this picture, put it here, and I'm going to open up a website I did already earlier. Open up, because that is what I was referring to in the secret history of the Jesuits. I have a note here that I said we could finish with reading this blog. This blog, that is this blog. Let's Roll Community Forums. It is full of quotations on the Jesuit order. You see, I'm just scrolling down. These are all quotations on the Jesuit order up to here. I don't think that we can get fully through it today, but I want to finish the wonderful book reading of Edmund Paris with a bang. And the bang is reading some of these quotations about the Jesuit order. My history of the Jesuits is not eloquently written, but it is supported by unquestionable authorities, and is very particular and very horrible. The Jesuits' order restoration in 1814 by Antichrist Pope Pius VII is indeed a step toward darkness, cruelty, despotism, and death. I do not like the appearance of the Jesuits. If ever there was a body of men who merited eternal damnation on earth and in hell, it is this Society of Ignatius de Loyola. Quote from John Adams, second President of the United States of America. And from the Marquis de Lafayette, who was a French statesman and general, served in the American Continental Army under the command of General George Washington during the American Revolutionary War, and of course was Jesuit trained, as was Washington. He says, "It is my opinion that if the liberties of this country, the United States of America, are destroyed, it will be by the subtlety of the Roman Catholic Jesuit priests. For they are the most crafty, they are the most dangerous enemies to civil and religious liberty. They have instigated most of the wars of Europe." Then comes a quote from Abraham Lincoln, 16th President of the United States. And we have a full quotation at the end of this page, but we are going to read only this part now. Quote, "The war," speaking about the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865, "would never have been possible without the sinister influence of the Jesuits." Quote, "The public is practically unaware of the overwhelming responsibility carried by the Vatican and its Jesuits in the starting of the two world wars, a situation which may be explained in part by the gigantic finances at the disposition of the Vatican and its Jesuits, giving them power in so many spheres, especially since the last conflict." Edmund Paris, author of the book The Secret History of the Jesuits that we just finished. Samuel Morse, American inventor of the telegraph, author of the book Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States. Quote, "The Jesuits are a secret society, a sort of Masonic order, with super-added features of revolting odiousness, and 1,000 times more dangerous." R.W. Thompson, ex-Secretary of the American Navy and author of the book The Footprints of the Jesuits, says, quote, "The Jesuits are the deadly enemies of civil and religious liberty." Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French, 33rd degree Freemason and Jesuit controlled through the Illuminati all of his life, coming from Corsica, punishing France for what she did before, as we read in The Secret History of the Jesuit. He is linked to this quote, "The Jesuits are a military organization, not a religious order. Their chief is a general of an army, not the mere father abbot of a monastery. And the aim of this organization is power. Power in its most despotic exercise, absolute power, universal power, power to control the world by the volition of a single man, i.e. the Black Pope, the superior general of the Jesuits. Jesuitism is the most absolute of despotisms, and at the same time the greatest and most enormous of abuses." Unquote. From F. Tapasauci, author of the book Rulers of Evil, that you can be read, that you can be found reading me reading on my channel, we read, quote, "The Roman Inquisition had been administered since 1542 by the Jesuits." Unquote. From G.E.C. Shepherd, a Canadian historian, we read, quote, "Between 1555 and 1931, the Society of Jesus was expelled from at least 83 countries, city-states and cities for engaging in political intrigue and subversion plots against the welfare of the state, according to the records of a Jesuit priest of repute, Thomas J. Campbell. Practically every instance of expulsion was for political intrigue, political infiltration, political subversion, and inciting to political insurrection." Unquote. From the same person we read, quote, "It is impossible to read Elizabethan history," meaning the history surrounding Queen Elizabeth I of England, who reigned England between 1558 and 1603, "except in the context of an army of Jesuits, masters of deceit, treachery, treason, infiltration, subversion, assassination, insurrection, civil war and coercion, plotting for the good of the papacy and the defeat of all the Pope's foes anywhere in the world." Unquote. From Theodor Griesinger we read, and who is Theodor Griesinger? The author of this book, The Jesuits, A Complete History of Their Open and Secret Proceedings from the Foundation of the Order to the Present Time. From him we read the following quote, "The whole frightful responsibility for this terrible 30 Years' War, which is between 1618 and 1648, must rest upon the Holy Roman Emperor Ferdinand II and his teachers, rulers, and bosom friends, the sons of Loyola, i.e., the Jesuit order." An American historian, James Parton, said, "If you trace up Masonry through all its orders till you come to the grand tip-top of the Mason of the world, you will discover that the dread individual and the chief of the Society of Jesus, the Superior General of the Jesuit order, are one and the same person." This maybe is attributed here to James Parton, but I know that is also part of Helena Blavatsky's ISIS Unveiled or the Secret Doctrine, one of the two of her books. Yeah? Don't nail me on which one, but it is in one of her books. We are going to stop about an hour, and I will put the link to the forum in the description box of this video, so you can read all the other quotes if you like, then for yourself. But let's see what we're gonna stop with, because when you have so many quotes to take, and I know them all, I've heard them all, but still there are many very interesting quotes in here. And let's see if we can find an interesting one. You see, there are here a lot of quotes taken from Bill Hughes from his book The Secret Terrorists and The Enemy Unmasked. Two very fine books Bill Hughes wrote, and you maybe want to check out my playlist if you like Bill Hughes, that I have on my second YouTube channel, and I'm gonna show it to you right here. That playlist is called Behind the Door. Now let's see, we have so many playlists here. Where is Behind the Door? Here. This is the playlist Behind the Door. 55 videos of lectures, each of about 1 hour long, of Bill Hughes. And they are dated between the year 2000 and the year, if I'm not mistaken, 2004 or 2005. Yeah, probably 2005, because it speaks here about Joseph Ratzinger, and he only became Pope in 2005. So, but these are videos, lectures. These are lectures from Bill Hughes that were done before he published the books, of which we can read here in Let's Roll Forum, quotes on the Jesuits. Now, let's finish with this one here. This is from Brigadier General Thomas M. Harris, and I like to end the reading of the Secret History of the Jesuits with this quote. And Brigadier General Thomas M. Harris, by the way, wrote a book about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. The quote goes as follows. The organization of the Roman Catholic hierarchy is a complete military despotism, of which the Pope is the ostensible, meaning the apparent or the seeming head, but of which the Black Pope, the Superior General of the Jesuits, is the real head. You want a confirmation for that? Go into this papal bull that I read to you, Injunctum Nobis of 1543. The Black Pope, the quotation continues, is the head of the order of the Jesuits and is called a general. He not only has command of his own order, but also directs and controls the general policy of the Roman Catholic Church. The Black Pope is the power behind the throne and is the real potential head of the hierarchy. The whole machine is under the strictest rules of military discipline. The whole thought and will of this machine to plan, propose, and execute is found in its head. There is no independence of thought or of action in its subordinate parts. Implicit and unquestioning obedience to the orders of the superiors in authority is the sworn duty of the priesthood of every grade. I'm going to do something that I did not plan. I will end this video with a video Brett Norman produced for me on a reading that I did some time ago. It is called The Power Behind the Pope. It is 6.5 minutes long. It's this one here, and this will start as soon as I stop this camera recording, and then you will have the normal outro that you are used to see during the reading and discussion of the book The Secret History of the Jesuits, which we completed today. It has been a long journey of 30 videos and a few excursions, because I was reading to you a part of The Secret Terrorists from Bill Hughes, one chapter on World War II. I was reading to you in 2 readings about the book from Yuki Goni about the undesirable immigration of the Jews during the Second World War, and how the Peron government in Argentina helped escape Nazi war criminals after the Second World War into South America. And you of course know, because we spoke about this during this book reading, of Operation Paperclip, where a lot of Nazi war criminals then hid in the United States of America. I'm very glad I brought this book to a conclusion. The German book I'm uploading at this moment, and the English one will follow. Within a few weeks, I can promise I start uploading this. So today is the 14th of March 2018, 11 o'clock p.m. already. I'm getting a little bit tired because of the time, and also because it is very hard to concentrate all the time on this reading. But I thank you all for watching and listening, watching these videos, listening to my reading, listening to my explanation, and I hope that you have been edified by reading and understanding together with me the book The Secret History of the Jesuits, and all the other books that I referred to during this reading, and all the other books I have read on my YouTube channel that are all there for you to search out and to see that I am not speaking of any conspiracy theory, but speaking about documented facts. And the most important fact of them all is the truth. And there is only one truth, and that truth is in the Word of God. the 1611 authorized version of the King James Bible. That is the only truth that really counts. All these secular studies and matters are only interesting when you are steady built on the rock. When you are built on the foundation that the word of our Creator God and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is. If you do not have that foundation, all these studies will tell you nothing. They will mean nothing to you. You first have to have the understanding and the biblical understanding of the biblical, historical and prophetic Antichrist. If you don't understand that the papacy is the Antichrist, then why all this ranting about the Jesuit order? It doesn't matter, right? Because the Antichrist is just one single person coming in the far future, a few years before Jesus Christ returns, and we don't need to care about it anyway, because we're all raptured out here. If you believe that, fine. Then you don't have anything lost on my channel. My videos will not speak to you. My message will not speak to you. Jesus Christ will not speak to you. The Holy Spirit will not speak to you. But if you have your foundation, and your foundation on the rock that is Jesus Christ, and when your conscience is led by the Creator of this world, by our Father in heaven, then you have everything to do on my channel and educate yourselves, edify yourself via this historic studies, that you can make sense of in the past written Bible prophecies, which are only future looks into history, and now in 2018 looking back, seeing all the prophecies of the Bible fulfilled through history when we study history, as we are given in books like The Secret History of the Jesuits by Edmund Paris, in books like Romanism and the Reformation from the Standpoint of Prophecy by Henry Gretton Guinness, like Rome and Civil Liberty by James Aitken Wiley, like Rulers of Evil by F. Tupper Saucy, like The Footprints of the Jesuits from R. W. Thompson, like All Roads Lead to Rome by Michael de Semlyen, like The Jesuits by Griesinger, which I just showed you that you can read, and so many more books, so many more knowledge that is out there for us to grasp and to embrace, if we first embrace the Bible and embrace Jesus Christ. Up to here, thank you very much for watching and listening and commenting, and I hope you will join me again in my next book reading that will come here on this channel, Joggler 66, Hour of the Truth. Up to now, I say God bless you and bye-bye. The City of the Seven Hills, Chapter 5. The Power Behind the Pope. With eyes now opened, look at yonder sight. Satan transformed, an angel of the light. His left hand holds a crucifix, his right a naked sword. What harmony in these! The quickened sense the adversary sees, spite of disguises, as the piercing eye of Jesus did the prince of hell descry. Hid in the form of Peter, so our gaze looks on the lie with anger and amaze. Rome is a hierarchy, and means the reign through priests of the old enemy again. 200 millions of the sacred sway of the triple tyrant and his word obey. Upon them 500,000 priests with feet audacious tread and tramp as seemeth meet. Upon the priests 1,000 bishops climb and cluster on their shoulders while sublime. Above the bishop cardinals appear, and over them the ruler of the sphere, the aged autocrat, and close behind frowns the dark visage of the mastermind. O form half seen, half hidden, black as night, and blood-stained, furtive, shrinking from the sight, slippery, unearthly, calculating, cold, the papal helm and scepter thou dost hold. Yes, thou! The vision startles men at times, and then recedes the mountain of thy crimes. Looms like a lurid Etna twixt the clouds, and while the world is gazing, darkness shrouds the horror, and men think on it no more. Yet there it is in fact, as it was before. Satan himself beneath the sacred name of Jesus followers the loftiest claim, the purest doth advance, angel of light. His name is Jesuit or Jesuit. The company of Jesus, Satan's band, his own militia, his material hand, his heart of falsehood, his most subtle mind, his serpent shape while coil in coil doth wind, and in the folds, the fangs, the glittering eyes, God shall unearth thee yet. Thy sentence lies writ in his book, yea, hast thou never read, the woman's seed shall bruise the serpent's head? He whose great name thou bearest, he shall crush thy hateful head. Go then, thy presence hush. Slip slyly into palaces and shrines, sit in confessionals, dig secret minds, plot, plan, pretend, dissemble, darken, lie. Heaven yet shall drag thee forth and lift thee high, and with its hand of might in holy ire fling thee, foul serpent, in the eternal fire. O monstrous pyramid, I see it rise, it seems to tower and touch the very skies. Man's lofty free morality is mute in the dread presence of the Absolute. The priest is in the place of the Most High, all must submit to his authority. Then in his turn the priest doth bend before the bishop, while the bishop doth adore the pope, and he, well, Satan doth inspire, Satan dark-dressed in Jesuit's attire. And in that fraud than he there is none higher. Ye foolish victims of conspiracy, what's your pope? A mask, a mystery. The mouthpiece is another. Read and see the doctrines of the Jesuits, who guide the papal judgment and unseen decide the voice of the infallible, and read the story of their deeds. Take ye good heed, to whom your soul's salvation ye commit. Who is it that in truth does yonder sit in that dark Vatican? See wheel in wheel how works the strange machine, so to which ye kneel, and how one name another doth conceal. Apostles guide not now, the church is dumb, the fathers dead and buried, conscience numb, the intellect, the soul have lost their eyes, Bibles are banned and wisdom only lies in one man's breast. And who is at his back? Ah, that's the question. Only trace the track behind the papal chair, where to and fro it winds, and you shall meet with wonder, lo, another pope behind the pope we know. Another pope behind the pope we know.
Especially I work in dealing with the infiltration of churches and religious institutions as well as government. That cover a tremendous number of institutions.
And the purpose of that infiltration was what for?
Well, the purpose is what the Roman Catholic system has all the time as her own purpose, is to infiltrate, to penetrate all the areas of life where the Roman Catholic can have control and access for the coming world government.
Simply put, this country and this world benefit from your commitment to Jesuit principles, to being men.
As a graduate of another great Jesuit institution, Xavier University, I have great affection for the value and purpose of a Jesuit education.
What that means is, in preparation for that world government, the Roman Catholic institution, especially since the establishment of the Jesuit order in 1541, throughout all these 500 years, they've been in preparation and through infiltration and penetration of every level of society in order to take over the world politically and religiously.
What a beautiful day the Lord has made. Holy Father, on behalf of Michelle and myself, welcome to the White House.
There are two doctrines that define very well these dangerous goal of the Roman Catholic institution. Two doctrines define this very well. One is called the doctrine of the apostolic succession, and that is dealing with the papacy. And the other is the doctrine, the temporal power, and that is dealing with world government. Of course, both, because you can see that even the Pope and his own individual office, he meet those requirements. He is not only the head of his church, as he called himself, John Paul II, the present Pope. He said he is the pastor of his church. He is not only that, but he is the head of his state.
It is a sign, perhaps, of how far we have come in this country that today's news of formal recognition between the governments of the United States and the Vatican did not create a furor. Once upon a time, it would have. Once upon a time, and not all that long ago, it did.
From the time of President Washington, that was the first president to be utilized by the Jesuits. If you were not aware of that, President Washington already was initiated by the Jesuits to bring about the first communication with the Vatican ever known in this country. From there on, President Reagan, throughout all this time, President Reagan has come to fulfill the greatest moment in the history of this conspiracy.